boundaries. So I think it's so valuable to laugh out loud, but we can't always control that. It's not easy. So when you find something reliable that you know is going to make you feel good in that way that you value, then it's so useful to have.
Right. And that's, what I intend for the show to be is I have other people who are in the industry or friends on who I ask them like, what is that show for you? What show got you through a really hard time? What show can always snap you out of a bad mood? What show makes you feel less alone? What character do you see yourself represented in the most? And like, when's the first time you saw yourself in a character? And, there are certain TV shows and movies that I've watched where I've been like, huh, I've been through that. And I never realized what was actually happening.
Okay.
And
Huh.
so, it's stuff like that. And I love having people come on and talk about those things. And it's also introduced me to so many different TV shows and films that I would have never watched. And then I watch them and I'm like, oh, yeah, I could see how this could help you through a hard time.
Yeah. And yet, interestingly, we've talked about this a little bit, and we end up in very different places. And I think that's what's so important for people listening to see that you may hate the shows that other people hate, and yet you might find something that sort of works for you in a bad moment. I'll give another example. So Big Bang Theory, I just love it. So if I'm on a flight to Europe, I save it until like the part where I'm like just about to go insane. And
Yeah.
then I listen to they usually have like 2 episodes of Big Bang Theory and then Young Sheldon, which is the spinoff. And it just like really gives me a physical release.
Hmm.
And I also talk a lot about habituation. So obviously, if I watched it all the time, I think it wouldn't work. So that's why I sort
Mm.
of conserve it to the worst part of the flight.
That's so interesting that you say that you think it wouldn't work if you watched it all the time. Because I'm like, when I go too long without watching Friends, which is like at most maybe 2 days, because I'm like enthralled in another show, I don't feel like myself. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, like I miss this part of me already.
Withdrawal.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I just watched all of Friday Night Lights for the first time.
I don't know that. I'll write it down.
Oh, it's amazing. And I it's way more intense than Friends or any other sitcom. And but I was so sucked into it. But I noticed in my life, I was feeling more intense. Like I take on the energy of what I'm watching so easily.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I never want to watch, and this is really recommended for people listening. If you watch something with like a tension, like they get to the edge of a building and there's a murderer around the
Mm-mm.
corner and the music rises, it's terrible for you. And a lot of times I get hooked on a nonviolent show, and then a few episodes in, it starts getting violent. And I have to admit, in addition, Call the Midwife. I don't know if you know that, but
Mm-mm.
love it. But then it like some then it like I love 95% of it, but 5% of it is about people having really bad illnesses and they show really graphic images,
Yeah,
and then
I
I
don't want to watch
notice
that.
it. Yeah,
I don't want to watch that. I
yeah.
just like I am like, why would like even watching The Bear? It's an incredible show. It's
I'll
one of
write that
the
down.
greatest
Okay.
shows ever. But I'm sitting there in the kitchen and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get this done. And now where's this? And like, and I'm like, the whole time where I'm like, oh my gosh, Brittany, relax. Or like when I'm watching Friends all day long or before I go to bed, I'm like coming up with these witty remarks and like having, just
Yeah.
being just more light spirited. And that's why I don't watch anything scary. I don't watch anything violent because
But yeah.
I will be walking on edge the rest of the day and I don't need that. Like
But it's such
after
a good I'm sorry. Oh, it's such a good example that you gave that when you're on edge, you don't even consciously know that you're on edge for the show. So you
Mhm.
just start projecting that onto things in your daily life.
Yeah, absolutely. You're like, "Why am I so emotional right now?" And then you're like, "Oh, because I just watched 10 episodes of Grey's Anatomy and I've been crying for, the last day and a half."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, everything seems like it's so heavy. And while those shows are amazing to watch because, there still are things you can relate to and find strength in when you watch these characters overcome something,
Mhm.
but I definitely do better when I'm watching a comedy.
So you said that when you haven't watched Friends for a few days and having withdrawal, that you miss that certain part of you. So could you explain what you mean by what part is that?
I think, I get my energy source from my friends. And that's very much what I see in the show. They all are such a support system for each other. And even when they're going through really hard times, there's still humor found in it. And so when I find myself not looking for the humor in a situation, that's when I know I'm a little disconnected from watching
Ah,
Friends.
okay.
And so I think I just really I look at everything around me, whether it's my friends in real life or friends on television, as a mirror. So these people that you surround yourself with are a mirror of who you want to be and the best parts of you. And I think that that is what I see when I watch Friends is that like I do have really amazing friends like that and it helps me stay grounded in the friendships that I have because they're so important to me.
Good. So people listening to this may possibly have a bad reaction, like someone who hates Friends or thinks that TV is a waste of time. The bumper sticker "Kill your television" was
Oh, well then just let me tell you those are not my people.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, you can just choose your people. Okay.
Yeah.
But but I also want to mention that people who say that may be lacking a safe distraction. And this is what I
Mhm.
talk about in all of my books. We all need a safe distraction. Now, some people think they never need a distraction and they think they're going to go, go, go all the time, but that can have its consequences. Other people, they have a distraction, but it's not safe. So they need to experiment with what other distractors can they put on their agenda.
Mhm.
And distraction, to define it, is it's something that sucks in your attention so effectively that you stop the repetitive thoughts that you've been dwelling on and just give them a break, which makes it less likely for your electricity to zoom back into those repetitive thoughts.
Right. It's getting outside of yourself. And I think that's the biggest, thing with the guests that I've had on and who are, majority of actors. And I'm an actor and, also being sober and having a lot of friends in the AA community as well. Every guest who comes on, I always say, like, what's the best piece of advice you've gotten for your mental health or that you would give somebody? And a lot of them say to get outside of yourself and, to be of service of other people and ask somebody else how they are doing. And I think TV shows can do that for you as well because, I had Nancy Travis on and she loves like mysteries and these like crime dramas and everything. And she had said it's because her brain, she likes puzzles. So
Yes.
when you're watching these shows that are a murder mystery or a crime documentary or something like that, your brain is actively trying to figure something out. And
Absolutely.
if you're really trying to figure something out, you're not thinking about that shitty thing that happened to you like 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? Like you're focused on the present moment and you're being productive in a way.
You're actually stimulating dopamine when you are anticipating, when
Mhm.
you're expecting, when you're putting pieces together. You're
Right.
having, I'm looking for something and then I'm finding it. The seek
Yeah.
and find is what stimulates dopamine.
Mhm.
So, and then it seems to me that in your friend's perception is stimulating your oxytocin, which is having trust in your social support network.
Mhm.
And then serotonin is stimulated by feeling strength in your own strength, feeling like you're in a one-up position. And
Mhm.
my guess is that watching Friends gives you the feeling that it's okay to be an extrovert who is dependent on a friends network. Whereas,
Yeah.
like when I watch my shows, is like they give me the impression that it's okay to be however it is that I perceive myself,
Right.
and that
Right.
puts us in the one-up position.
Yeah, there's so many times I'm watching it, I'm like, "You know what? Rachel Green got through it, so I can too." I'm like, there's so many times. I mean, and I feel that way with Jennifer Aniston too. Like, there's so many times I'm like, "If Jennifer Aniston can do it, so can I."
Good for you. Now, what about people who would say to you, and I don't know if they ever say this on your show or how, or if you ever get any flack at all, but that you are not living your own life, that you're living through false images. How do you respond to them?
I mean, I don't think anybody's ever said that to me. I think that is what my friends are to me is they accept me for who I am, and the things that some people would find like annoying or like, oh my God, too much are the things that my friends love about me. Like
Ah,
they truly, they send me anything that has any relation to Jennifer Aniston or Friends. They send it to me or buy me these little gifts. Like I can't even tell you how many pairs of Friends socks I have from people and like mugs and everything. So I don't know. I don't think, I mean, if somebody said that to me, I'm maybe I just have like this really tough wall up where I'm like, well, then you're not my person, so bye. Like,
that's fabulous. That's
yeah.
fabulous because so
See you
many
later.
people are so aware of criticism and don't realize how they're actually generating that criticism internally.
Mhm.
And in their minds, they're hating the critic, and then they're going around criticizing everyone else for being a hater without realizing that they're creating the drama themselves. So you have managed to avoid that mindset despite the fact that I feel like there's a lot of people who would, who are critics of anyone who watches television. So good for you.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like there was one time in my life where somebody said like all you do is watch TV and cry. And I was like, yeah, what's your point? Like at least I'm not walking around angry and being mean to people. But like, if my outlet and what makes me feel better is watching TV and I cry instead of scream at other people, then like, good for me.
So I always talk about self-acceptance as being the
Hmm.
top priority. And so many people who read my books, they think that the point is to learn new habits. I'm like, no, the first point is self-acceptance.
Hmm.
So how do you think you've learned so much self-acceptance?
I think because I had none for a very long time.
Very
Yeah.
good.
I
Okay.
worked really hard.
Huh.
And there was a point in my life where I had no self worth and no self acceptance. And I worked really hard in therapy 5 days a week, 5 hours a day in therapy.
You're kidding. Oh,
Yeah.
so you were in some kind of treatment,
Yeah.
residential treatment.
Yeah. I had to. I
Wow.
had
Yeah.
to because I got to a point where my life felt like it kind of just blew up into all these puzzle pieces. And I was like, how do I put them back together in a picture that I would like? Like, it can't be what it is now. And, I talk about, being at this treatment center a lot on my podcast. And it single handedly saved my life. And I look at where I was then and where I am now and how much I used to betray myself and not think I deserved anything more in this world and in this life. So, self-acceptance and self-worth, it's not something you have to work on it and it's every single day. And that's what I learned. And like you have to put in the work. You can't just go to therapy to say you go to therapy. You can't just go to seek help and be like, well, yeah, I'm here. Like, you have to do so much work. You have
I'm
to be
here, fix me.
yeah, you have to get uncomfortable. You have to cry. You have to get mad. You have to make serious changes in your life. And I did. And it was hard. But honestly, we talk about, how TV can change your mood and inspire you to do things. But it was, Selena Gomez, who really, when she was very open about her mental health, and I was so scared about getting this treatment, I was like, you know what? Selena Gomez did it. And she's powerful, talented, and has a career, has everything. And she was so open about going to seek treatment that I was like, I can do it too. It's fine.
Well, I have to say that I've done the same thing in terms of learning from famous people. Once
Hmm.
again, we've chose different famous people to learn from, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you a really funny story that was pivotal in my life. There is a book called The Intimate Sex Lives of Famous People. And it's like 600 pages long. And it's
Hmm.
like an encyclopedia. And every chapter is a different famous person, most from history, but some contemporary. And you just read about their lives, and they were all shitty. Like they were all horrible, especially their quote unquote intimate sex lives.
Mm,
It talks about their, the frustrations and disappointments of their love life. So it doesn't actually go into the gory
yeah.
details. But when I read that book, it was like a weight lifted because before that, I kept thinking, what am I doing wrong? Like everybody else has this figured out and I'm missing out. And then when I read this book, I'm like, wow, all these famous people had frustrations their whole lives. Like, oh, I'm just normal.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, we put celebrity up on a pedestal, and we think that, and in general, not even just celebrity, we think that because this person has this, they have everything. They have a well-paying job, so they must have it all figured out. And we compare ourselves to them, or like, yeah, you know, so and so, a celebrity, has gone through a horrible breakup, but at least
Mm.
they're famous, at least they're touring the world, at least they have their own TV show. And it's like, no, it's still painful and hard, and they have to do the work also. But you see that these incredible women or men who are going through really public hard times, you're like, if they can get through it, so can I.